Chuck Norris is dead. I'm not doing the bit, I'm not doing the joke, or death was too scared to tell him. I spent the last 6 hours scouring the AP wires and the local registries in Kauai. At 86, the man we turned into a literal god of the internet finally stopped breathing. Cardiovascular event. Sudden. Final. I want to be upfront here. This isn't just a celebrity obituary. This is a massive cultural bifurcation. Chuck Norris was the last absolute truth in an era of relative garbage. Before we deconstruct this, I want to acknowledge the human weight of this passing. He was a father of 5 and a husband. My goal is to unpack why his exit feels like a systemic failure of our reality, but I'm doing it with the respect the man earned. Music begins to subtly change, more mechanical, more harsh. We spent 20 years joking that Chuck Norris doesn't die, he just levels up. But let's look at the gristle. Humans aren't designed for immortality. In biology, there's a concept called senescence, the biological process of deterioration with age. Even for a man who won the world professional middleweight karate championship 6 years running, the algorithm of the human heart has a hard cap. In the 1960s, the martial arts circuit wasn't just about fighting, it was about the limits of the human nervous system. Chuck wasn't a god. He was a high-performance machine that refused to ossify. But in 2026, where we're chasing longevity escape velocity, the idea that we can outpace death with tech, Chuck's passing is a cold, hard reminder. The hardware eventually fails, no matter how many roundhouse kicks you have in the chamber. Another layer of music is added, more emotional, more complex. That's the crowd right there. This isn't just grief, it's systemic dread. To the digital natives, he wasn't a person, he was a constant like gravity or math. We built this altar of invincibility because every other structure in our lives, the housing market, the job market, the political landscape, feels like wet cardboard. We needed one thing that couldn't be broken. And now that he's gone, the algorithm feels unfinished. Music shifts to a quiet confessional. I remember being 24. I had just watched my first business venture go up in flames. I was $40K in debt, sleeping on a mattress that smelled like damp laundry, and I was so paralyzed by the shame that I couldn't even walk to the mailbox. I felt like a placeholder, a bug in the environment. I survived that winter by watching Chuck Norris marathons. I didn't watch them because the acting was good. It was terrible. I watched them because I needed to see a guy who couldn't lose. I needed a hero who didn't have existential crises. I needed a caricature to hide behind so I wouldn't have to face my own pathetic reality. I was gullible enough to think his invincibility was a strategy I could copy. It wasn't. It was just a distraction. Music shifts again. It rises, building to a summery sound. The dojo is empty. The gear is on the floor. The era of the unbeatable man is officially over. And maybe that's the real absolute truth we were avoiding. We spent 20 years mythologizing a man because we were too scared to admit that we are all temporary. Chuck Norris didn't start as a god. He started as a kid from Oklahoma who grew up in poverty with a dad who didn't show up. He ground his way to the top, and eventually, the grind ended. Go home. Call your brother. Be the person who shows up for your friends. Because when the immortal men die, all we have left is the people who actually know our names.